Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a deep dive, but today it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk like this the entire day. I'm just kidding with you. See, it's me, but I'm like, I had all my stuff on backwards. Funny, right? 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 What is going on, guys? So today we are back with another deep dive, diving deeper into the Rainbow Cup, and today we are actually gonna change a small thing. So I've heard you loud and clear, everybody, you shouldn't do top 10 bulk, you should probably do the meta Pokemon. You definitely, it's a waste of time to talk about Suicune. It's a waste of time to talk about Shuckle. I know, okay? I heard you. Here's my proposition. I love doing the top Pokemon in the cup. The problem is that those Pokemon aren't generally decided on until I've done like half of the deep dives that I'm gonna do for the entire cup. So are you guys okay with like the first half? Like until these Pokemon get established, we just stick to the top 10, and then after these Pokemon get established, we'll go into those? Is that okay? Because there's no way, I mean, I can guess. I can give you like the top 10 Pokemon that I think are going to be relevant at the beginning of the month, but I mean, I could be completely wrong and we could spend half a month preparing for Suicune. Anyways, if you have any suggestions, just call me, text me, email me, and then mail me a letter with 2 stamps on it. So today we're actually going to be talking about Qwilfish, which is a water and poison type Pokemon, and coming off of the cups that Qwilfish has been in, Qwilfish actually has a little bit of notoriety because it does have access to some pretty quick moves. So let's actually get into this. So maxing out at level 40 with 15s across the board, you can actually hit a 2051, which is not too shabby. So with a 0 on attack, 12 on defense, and 14 on stamina at a level 28, you can hit a 1498, which does keep you under the 1500 mark while also giving you basically the best stat product that you could possibly get out of this Qwilfish. Now, according to my spreadsheets and all the numbers that I have ran, Qwilfish should rank 60th in bulk and 49th in stat product. And of course, those do come from our base stats here with a 184 on attack, 138 on defense, and 163 on stamina. Not the greatest spread, but it's still not too shabby. So I definitely think it's our moves that make up what Qwilfish is today. So let's actually go over these. So in our fast moves, we have Poison Sting, which is 3 energy per turn for 1.5 damage per turn. Horrible damage. Terrible damage. But we do have a 1.8 after stab, so I guess it's not as horrible as 1.5, but it's still pretty bad. Then we have Water Gun, which is 3 energy for 3 damage at 3.6 after stab, which is respectable and definitely going to be the one that we go with today. Next we have our charge moves. We do actually have 4 different charge moves here with Aqua Tail, Ice Beam, Sludge Wave, and Acid Spray. I will go ahead and tell you that Ice Beam is the one that I did not look at hardly at all because Ice Beam is going to target flying types and grass types mainly. It's just not like great in this cup. It does have some places because it could be used against the actual grass typing, but it just kind of depends on what you want to go for. Personally today, I took the opportunity to kind of compare Sludge Wave and Acid Spray, so that's kind of why Ice Beam didn't really get used that much. So let's go over these moves really fast though. 35 energy on Aqua Tail for 50 damage at a 1.43. After stab, it does get bumped up to 60 damage for a 1.71. Ice Beam here does cost 55 for 90 damage at a 1.64. No stab, of course, since we do not carry that ice typing. Sludge Wave for 65 energy, you get 110 damage at a 1.69. After stab, it does get bumped up to 132. And then a 2.03 on the energy damage ratio there. Then we do have Acid Spray for 50 energy, you get 20 damage, which is terrible, but we do have that debuff. Then it is a 0.4 on the damage per energy ratio. After stab, it actually does get bumped up to 24 damage for a 0.48 damage per energy ratio. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh man. So we have Sludge Wave and we have Acid Spray. I definitely think that Aqua Tail is the move to go for in terms of our water move, only because it's super low energy. And it's really spammable. So with Water Gun hitting Aqua Tail, we should be able to get to Aqua Tail actually in just over 10 turns. think it would be 12 turns, so it'd be 6 full seconds, which is that's not terrible. But that is definitely our fastest move there, which I do think that gives us a ton of speed that we really need on Qwilfish, while having Sludge Wave and Acid Spray being our kind of unique move that kind of gives us some flair. So actually the entire rest of this deep dive is going to be spent comparing Sludge Wave and Acid Spray. But for what I want you to keep in mind, and I am actually going to put it over here, is that we are going to be running Water Gun, Aqua Tail, and then either Sludge Wave or Acid Spray. It'll just kind of be up to where we are in the actual matches over here. With that being said, let's actually get into some shield scenarios here. First, we're going to go over our 0 versus 0, which is where I don't have any shields, my opponent doesn't have any shields, kind of like a closing type situation, if you will. With Sludge Wave, we actually end up winning 37%, while with Acid Spray, we only end up winning 28.3%. So definitely got to give this one to that good old Sludge Wave there. Now, in our next shield scenario, we have a 2 versus 0, which is an 84.8% on Sludge Wave and a 71.7% on Acid Spray. Now, in this shield scenario, I have 2 shields. My opponent actually doesn't have any, and honestly, I'm not actually too worried about this 84.8%. I'd much rather know the other Pokemon that are actually going to still end up beating me, even though I have complete shield advantage. And actually, once you think about this one, it's not too surprising here. Razor Leaf users and Confusion users are going to end up getting to us here. Razor Leaf, of course, will target this water typing. It's a huge weakness, Razor Leaf being huge damage. Makes a lot of sense there. And then this poison typing is going to be weak to that Confusion, and Confusion being such a heavy hitting move, it makes a lot of sense there as well. Our next shield scenario is this 0 versus 2, which is where I don't have any shields, my opponent actually has both shields. We actually end up winning 5.4 in both situations here. Now, I'm actually concerned about that 5.4 here, because if they have both of their shields, I'd like to know which Pokemon I still actually just flat out beating, even though they have complete shield advantage. Now, no surprise here, it is a couple of the fire types, not all of the fire types, but there are actually the only Pokemon that we end up beating are fire, and we don't actually beat all of them. It's just a couple of them. Like, I know Houndoom doesn't show up here. It's basically like Magbees and Macargo and stuff like that, because they do carry that weakness to Water Gun, and we're just able to spam Water Gun until we can destroy them. Now, in our last shield scenario here, we have this 2 versus 2, which is where I have both shields, my opponent has both shields, kind of like a opening type situation, if you will. We actually end up winning 42.4 with Sludge Wave and 39.1 with Acid Spray. So I gotta give it to Sludge Wave there again. If you guys remember back in the Quagsire deep dive, this one was a little bit more underwhelming than Quagsire. And I don't know for sure if this is why, but here's my initial thought on it. I think that Quagsire having more HP and a little bit more bulk than Qwilfish does, it allows him to use Acid Spray a little bit more willingly. And when we get into some of these matches, I'll kind of explain one of the weird ones that I found that I thought shouldn't really sway too far one way or the other, but it did. So I honestly just think that Quagsire has a little bit more stats that line up with a better situation for Acid Spray, because with Qwilfish, Acid Spray is even more of a risk with not as much of a reward, for me at least. So now let's actually get into some matchups here. So if you want to follow along in PvPoke, you can actually just follow along by going to PvPoke, hitting battle, setting up a Qwilfish here. We want Water Gun, Sludge Wave, Aqua Tail for this first little scenario. Then we're going to make sure that we have one shield. We're going to go over and we're going to hit multi-battle here. We're going to select custom so that we can actually choose this Rainbow Cup meta list here. We're going to make sure the Rainbow Cup meta also has one shield, and as you can see, it just fills it with the top 24 Pokemon considered to be a meta pick for this month. Then we're going to hit battle here, and as you can see, we have 8 wins, 15 losses, and a draw. So right off the bat, we have Ninetales, Fortress, Macargo, Typhlosion, Beedrill, Azumarill, Charizard, and Blastoise as our wins. Then we have a Raikou as a tie, which, okay, that one makes a little sense. Kind of interesting that Fortress ends up losing to us, but Okay, then Beedrill, kind of also surprising, but I guess it doesn't make too big of a deal there. Now, Azumarill was actually one that I was surprised to see here. And then we have the Charizard, Blastoise, and then we get back into our Raikou there. So, back into our losses, we have Lantern, Lapras, Magneton, Mantine, Venusaur, Omastar, Venomoth, Meganium, Raichu, Quagsire, Victreebel, Kingdra, Executor, Slowpoke, and Slowbro. So, the ones down there at the bottom make a lot of sense because they are all utilizing Confusion, while Victreebel makes sense because it's using Razor Leaf. Kingdra's just doing a massive amount of neutral damage while also taking resisted damage from us. Raichu's going to be super effective to us. Meganium super effective. Venomoth using Confusion there. You can see Omastar with Mud Shot is actually going to be super effective up against our poison typing there. And then Venusaur with Vine Whip. Mantine actually pulling it out here with a ton of neutral damage while still resisting a lot of our damage. And then we have Magneton, which is super effective. Lapras still being insanely bulky no matter which way you cut him. And then Lantern there with Water Gun actually does end up pulling us out, and we get back to our Raikou. If we actually switch this over, if we go with Acid Spray, we end up having 6 wins and 17 losses. So, I won't try to beat around the bush. Raikou is still our tie. But Azumarill now becomes a loss, and Blastoise now becomes a loss. And the Azumarill one really makes me think, why does Azumarill end up losing to this? Well, so I actually tried to go into Sandbox, I tried to play around with this as much as I could, and honestly it comes down to the fact that with Acid Spray, and it actually, yes, is going to debuff their defense, but it doesn't hurt enough in the Azumarill matchup to warrant enough of a debuff. Because Azumarill is so tanky, it still ends up with enough tankiness to still end up beating us here. So I went in and I tried to play around with as much of these as I could, just trying to figure out how can I actually maximize this to see if there's a possibility that Qwilfish ends. The only scenario that I found is if possibly the opponent tries to farm energy and doesn't use their charge moves as quickly as possible, they could end up losing. So if the opponent actually thinks that, hey, this is an easy matchup for me, I should be able to farm a little bit of energy here right off the bat, no. They need to be able to fire their moves as quickly as possible, and it needs to be play rough generally. So Ice Beam can be kind of the shield bait here, but Play Rough is generally what you need to use against the Qwilfish to do your damage. And even in that scenario, you've got to really be able to just fire them off consistently, or Qwilfish will actually end up winning. Blastoise is another one where I think it just literally comes down to the amount of bulk that Blastoise has. We don't have enough firepower to actually combat it, so we actually end up losing out there because of that immense amount of bulk. But as you can see, it's not even trying to use Acid Spray here, so let's go in, let's try to switch around and let's see if we can get some Acid Spray going here. We definitely want them to shield the first one. And as you can see, it starts to get a little wonky here, so even before we could get to our second Acid Spray, we actually are going to die here. So we want the second one here to be Acid Spray as well. They're not going to be able to, yeah, see, even at best case scenario, as long as they stay on top of their charge moves, they're still going to be able to output enough damage to beat us out of the gate. So Blastoise is kind of the wonky one there. So the big change between Acid Spray and Sludge Wave here is you do give up the match against Azumarill and Blastoise, which is interesting. I definitely foresee Azumarill being way more seen in a tournament scene than Blastoise will, but giving up that Azumarill match means that if you want to run Acid Spray, you're going to have to at least have a different answer to the Azumarill on your team, whether that's going to be another poison type Pokemon like Beedrill, or if it's going to be a Pokemon like Lantern, or a direct counter like with Venusaur or Ivysaur or something along those lines. You can't rely on Qwilfish with Acid Spray to beat the Azumarill here. So now let's actually get into our countering section here. So basically the first set of parentheses is going to be Sludge Wave, while the second one is actually going to be the Acid Sprays. So switching back to our Sludge Wave here, if we actually hit battle up against the entire Rainbow Cup and we just want to look for bug types here, you can kind of see we actually end up having a pretty decent time. We only have 3 losses in the bug type section up against Parasect, Venomoth, and Butterfree. And those actually are kind of interesting. Both Venomoth and Butterfree have confusion, so that's not too shabby. But the actual Parasect here, utilizing those bug type fast moves to actually be able to do neutral damage to us, while actually, since it carries that grass typing, takes resisted damage from our water type move, makes a whole lot of sense there. So it is actually able to beat us out. From there though, it's all wins with Pinsir, Ladian, Beedrill, Scizor, Scyther, Yanma, Heracross, Fortress, Pineco, and Ariados is actually the easiest matchup there. But basically the bug type is a no problem with Sludge Wave, and actually in Acid Spray it's the exact same thing. So if we go up here and we switch over to Acid Spray, you can see for the bug type it actually stays the same. Everything is Parasect, Venomoth, Butterfree. Now I'm sure the numbers are a little bit different, but as far as matchups go, everything's the same. Pinsir, Ladian, Beedrill, Scizor, Scyther, Yanma, Heracross, Fortress, Pineco, and Ariados, boom. Exactly the same. So you don't forfeit any matches in the actual bug typing. Next, for the fire typing with Sludge Wave, as you can see here, we actually end up beating every single Pokemon, which is great. They are not able to actually withstand our super duper water gun and then our super duper Aqua Tail. So we can basically just spam Aqua Tail all day long after we can at least burn a shield. They're gonna have to decide in a real world scenario, do I want to waste both shields or not? And I mean, honestly, it's probably going to be a dominating set if you can actually end up getting all those Aqua Tails off. So the fire type is no big deal. When you switch over to Acid Spray, there's no sense in really using Acid Spray in a fire type matchup. Aqua Tail's probably going to be the better spam move. So fire type's no big deal in either move set. Now we're actually going to move on to the electric typing, which some of these are interesting. But we actually end up having 3 wins with Sludge Wave here with Ampharos, Flaffy, and Zapdos, while we do have 2 ties with Electrode and Raikou. Now, everything else is a loss, which isn't too surprising considering they are going to do super effective damage to our water typing there. But if we switch over to our Acid Spray, ooh, we actually have 1 less tie, so let's look at that. So in the Acid Spray here, you can see Electrode is no longer a tie, it's a straight up loss. So we do actually end up forfeiting a tie situation with Electrode, which, I mean, as you can tell, he's not really like a top meta choice, but you do actually end up forfeiting that in the electric matchup if you decide to use Acid Spray. Now we're actually moving into the grass types, which this one I have just imagined it was going to be a flat out loss across everywhere, but with Sludge Wave you can actually see we do have a really close matchup with Jumpluff here, and I kind of want to know how much HP we end with 2 HP. So in a real world scenario that's going to be really close. I don't know for sure. It looks like it actually might come down to charge move priority, because if you end up going with, yeah, oh no, okay, so if we have charge move, even if the opponent has charge move priority, we still win that one. So that makes that matchup a little bit easier. But 2 HP, winning with 2 HP is going to be like effectively the same as a loss to me. So I mean, for what it's worth, in PvPoke, it's a win, okay? And then everything else from there is a loss, which, I mean, that's not surprising. We are going to be super weak to the grass type here. We're not going to be able to do a lot of super effective damage outside of our actual poison type move there, but all losses except for Jumpluff. Now, if we switch over to the Acid Spray, you can actually see here, we actually end up losing to all of them. So that good old Jumpluff matchup, yeah, it's no longer a straight up victory with 2 HP. As you can see, we lose to literally everything, with the Jumpluff here actually being our 3rd best possible matchup, but it went from our winning status to our 3rd best loss. So, meh. Next in the water typing with Sludge Wave here, we do actually have 6 wins, which is Tentacruel, Azumarill, Wartortle, Corsola, Blastoise, and Kabuto are all wins. We do have couple ties here with Dugong, Krabby, Octillery, and Qwilfish ourselves. So, not too shabby. Everything else, of course, is a loss. So there is that. But if we actually switch over to Acid Spray, you can kind of see we actually end up having only 2 wins now. our Corsola and Kabuto are actually those 2 wins. We do actually end up having only 2 ties now, which are Krabby and Octillery. So as you can see, we do end up forfeiting several matchups. We actually end up forfeiting 4 wins and 2 ties. So we actually do quite a bit worse with Acid Spray as Qwilfish in the water typing. So that is my take on Qwilfish, guys. I really do think that Qwilfish is an interesting Pokemon. I don't think he is as dominating as he was in previous cups, but I do think that if you plan on running him, Acid Spray is a lot riskier in this Pokemon than it even was in Quagsire, because you're going up against certain Pokemon that are just, I mean, you're not winning flat out more matches with Acid Spray in any scenario with shields, and up against any of the meta Pokemon you only forfeit 2 matches. It's not like you actually trade off 2 matches. It's not like it still stays 8 wins on both sides. It's just 2 different matchups. It's that you're forfeiting 2 full matchups there. Now, with the argument that I gave in the Quagsire video, where Acid Spray should be used to kind of set up your next Pokemon, if you were to jump in with Acid Spray, you know, lower the defense a lot, even if it's an unfavorable matchup, it actually sets up another matchup to be a lot easier for your next Pokemon. That still applies here, and I think that is more apparent now in Qwilfish than it was with Quagsire, because Qwilfish, while not as bulky, it doesn't have as much HP, it's going to be a little bit more frail than Quagsire, so you're kind of stuck in that weird like limbo between Quagsire status and not so good. But that is actually it for today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for watching. Always remember that if you have a deep dive, you can put it down in the comments below. I'll be happy to add it to the spreadsheet. And actually, I'll go ahead and throw up the graph here because this is what's currently upcoming in the deep dive realm. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. And yeah, so that should be it today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Always remember that if you like to like videos, you can do that. But if you don't, you can be that guy. Otherwise, you can let me know what you have to say down in the comments below. And I hope my soothing voice lets you have a good day. And until our next video, I will catch you then.